Hello and welcome to this Belbin webinar. We will be starting in about a minute's time, so come on in, grab a coffee, get your cup of tea, get your pens and your paper ready, and we shall make a start. As you do come in, please do introduce yourself. Gary, lovely to see that you're already here from Plymouth, normally in sunny Dorset. Oh, okay, you're in Argyll. Oh, fantastic. So anybody else who, as you're joining, please do just say hello in the comments so that we can see where you're joining us from. That would be fantastic. I'm just going to click here. That's done there. Okay. Right. Just had LinkedIn in my ears at the same time as this and I couldn't deal with it. So I've just closed that down already. It's off to a good start. Okay. Hello there, Cheryl. Cheryl from Amsterdam. Fantastic. Argyll and Amsterdam. Anything beginning with an A. Anna, hi there from Berkshire. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be spending some really quality time here in conversation about managers, but actually everybody's coming in now. It's like you wait for a bus, Pete, and then everybody comes in at once. Peter, lovely to see you from Cheltenham. We've got Amanda from Nottingham, Odette from South Africa, and Hugo from Edinburgh. Hello. Well, that's at least 2 continents, isn't it? I mean, that's fabulous. Thank you. Okay. Let's make a start. As people do join, though, please do contribute to the chat, put your questions or anything in there, introduce yourself, because we're quite a friendly bunch here at Belbin, and we really want to get that sense of community as opposed to just listening to us chatter. Okay. Oh, hi, Rob. They're from Stamford, just up the road, and Alan from Brunei. There we go. That's pretty far-reaching, Pete, I do believe.
That's
okay.
Wonderful. Welcome to you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so welcome. My name's Jo Keeler and I'm the Managing Director here at Belbin. And at Belbin, we help teams work better together by putting that science behind teamwork. Delighted to be joined today by Pete. Pete and I met at an Institute of Leadership. I think it was Leadership Live, wasn't it, Pete? About 3 years ago, maybe. I was running a workshop. Pete was in the audience and we just connected. There was so much synergy between what we're doing. So it's delighted that Pete Fullard is joining us. Pete is the owner of, so I've got all my things confused here already, from Upskill People. And Upskill People, really, they have been working for over 30 years, partnering with organisations which expect more than just that tick box. So really helping organisations help their people get the skills and knowledge they actually need and the confidence to perform. So not just read this, off you go, but really helping them become the best they can possibly be in their work. So Pete, thank you so much for joining us. Just so we've also got Jay here from India's just joined in as well. Fantastic. So we're here and we're going to be talking about managers, management, good, bad, in between managers that we've had, and ways in which we can help them and empower them become better at what they do. So without further ado, Pete, I'm going to say over to you. Introduce yourself better than I've just done. Talk about your organisation far better again than I've just done, and just explain a little bit about what you do.
I'd be delighted to. Well, hello, everybody. And yes, Jo, we did meet at an Institute of Leadership event, and you made me stand in the corner virtually on my own, other than one other person who had the same profile as me. But you made an impression. So it's very good to finally be here, having a proper chat with you. Yes, as Jo said, I'm CEO of Upskill People. We do digital online learning, and in particular, we help managers be really good with their people. More importantly, we like to measure the difference that it's made at the end, because it's no good, as you say, just ticking the box and saying they've been through something. So that's our bag, really, and that's what we get up to.
Fantastic. Shall we start by asking everybody a question, Pete?
I think so.
I think let's ask, and you can join in here again in the comment section or on LinkedIn. Put your hand up if you've ever had a bad manager. I'm hoping nobody in the team actually is watching this and putting their hands up. Or hopefully it's a manager, not me. So who has experienced having a bad manager? I have to say, yes, several I've had, Pete, not just the one. Peter saying yes. And I think when you talk to people generally, people can remember that manager, can't they? They've got a real strong that everybody's just it's all coming now. Yes, 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 yes. Rob's had two in particular. Adet most definitely has had a bad manager. It's interesting, isn't it? Because how does that make us feel? Pete, how does it make people feel when they've had it's not just in the workplace, is it, that they're experiencing this bad manager? It has impacts, doesn't it, outside of that?
Yes, that's the real thing for me, particularly with people skills, is if you've got a bad manager, it's not only very stressful, very frustrating, and it's like wading through treacle at work, but it's going to affect your home life. The flip side is if you've got a really good manager, and my first one was a chap called Harry Stead, and he really believed in me. He knew I was a bit rough around the edges, shall we say, but he invested, was patient, and supported me. And it made my life a lot better, not just at work, because I just felt better generally. So I think that's the thing that really drives me, is a bad manager can have a very profound impact beyond the workplace, but obviously in the workplace as well. I don't know whether you've experienced that as well, Jo.
Do you know, that's really interesting. I just like to say that one of my very first managers was fabulous, a chap called Mark Young. And he, like you say, he really encouraged me. He knew that I'm not really a tick box person, but he enthused, he encouraged, he let me grow. And I think some not so great managers are ones who've done the opposite, who haven't seen me as a person, but see me as a tick box, things that they need to do. And yeah, you think when you get home, don't you slam the door, you never, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. And actually, it means that you've taken all of that emotion from work into your home, to your families, and everybody else knows that you've also not had a great manager. It really does have an impact. So it's so important that we do something about that. And of course, this is your bag, Pete. This is what you're doing. You're helping managers along that route. What do you think the number one reason is that people do come to you for help with managers?
Well, it's fairly straightforward, really. They just want their organisation to perform better. That's at the root of everything. The really good ones are the ones that also realise that if they have good managers, their people have a better life. And so those with investors in peoples or, B Corps, that type of thing, who've already got that good culture, they come going, we want to enforce it, make it that little bit better. But ultimately, they want their organisation to perform better. And they're looking for a way to do that they know it's working. So that measurement part of it is very important, because the data we get out, as we're going to chat about a bit later, helps them understand where they can invest further. But yeah, that's what they're all looking to do, make their people better.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a doddle.
But again, it is so crucial. I mean, there's so much data out there, isn't there, looking at management, the impact of it. I know that the CMI, they produced a report about accidental managers. 82% of new managers are accidental. They're doing a job that they've been promoted into, not one which they've necessarily applied for. And I think the word manager it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because the job title itself, it's a whole job. It's a whole load of competencies that we need to have, but we don't necessarily always see it as that. We just see it as a job title, a progression upwards, as opposed to thinking about what is management per se, what is that whole role, what is actually involved. We talk a lot in Belbin about the Peter principle. I don't know if you've heard of that, Pete.
Yes.
Where people
I'm
get
of a certain age that I can remember that. Yeah.
where people very much, they get promoted up to their level of incompetence. Which is such a shame, because we lose not just the managers, but we lose necessarily the teams and the impact that they're having on the organisation as well. So it's great to know that people are coming to you. I just wish more people were coming to you, perhaps those who don't realise they've got a problem and don't realise they need to make a difference there. So what I'd love you to do, Pete, is just tell us a little bit more about what you do, what you've measured, what you've done, and then we'll have a conversation through that as we go along. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Right, I'm going to jump into a little bit of a presentation. And if you're
Okay,
watching
fab.
this on record and you're watching it at 2 speed, I'm going to go very fast. So you're probably better off slowing up a bit here.
Oh, I love
I
that.
know people
Right.
don't want to listen to this, but this will explain what we do and also what the data is we're going to talk about later, which hopefully will be the really interesting stuff. Right, let me get
Fabulous.
my
Let's go
window
for
up.
it.
And I'm delighted that we have a lot of people from various countries, as hopefully one of these is your language. So welcome to you all. We already know who I am, and we're going to look at management. So as I mentioned earlier, here's the plug. We do online learning for managers, and we gather a lot of data which we can use to inform, and I'm going to share some of that with you after. But what is it exactly that we do? Okay, so firstly of all, it's a thing called Managing People. It is an interactive online drama. The drama unfolds, you interact with it, make decisions and get feedback. There's 7 courses or episodes. And embedded within that, there's 8 assessments, and we do 2,100 data point checks per person to see where their competencies are. It takes approximately 12 hours. So it's quite an immersive program. It is standalone or it can be blended in. And in particular, we're very lucky to have it blended in with some of the things that Belbin do. And again, there's going to be a great free download about that later. And as Jo mentioned, we're both fellows at the Institute of Leadership, and it's endorsed by them. So this is the basic way it hangs together. You've got a quick skills check at the beginning. Then you have the courses. You've got some mastery checks. And along the way, we blend it in with whatever the client's doing. We also tend to do a pre-cohort video call where we ask them lots of questions, in particular what they're looking to get out of it. And again, we're going to share that a bit later. And also then at the end, what did they get out of it? What are they changing? And what's the barriers to change? And when we decided to put this series together and wrote these lovely scripts, one of the things that we said to clients was, you guys have got management development programs. How could we improve on them? And as well as make them faster, the one thing that came out was people go on these programs, whether they're away days or video calls, they come back and they say, oh, it was fabulous. We learned so many things. And then the next question they ask their new managers or accidental managers, and what are you going to do differently this week? And then the response we kept getting was, well, real life's very different to the course. So that was the bit we worked on. And so each of the episodes are, as I say, a drama, which is the central part. And here's the team that the person who's interacting with the system, the courses is going to manage. They play the role of Charlotte in the middle. And all of these wonderful characters have got some very sophisticated, complicated and very challenging situations that you're going to manage through. You've also got the guy over to the right called Tony. He's your boss. And I have to say, whoever's put the hand up and said, I've had a bad boss, it's probably somebody like a Tony. But there's upward management. There's things you can do as a manager, both upwards and alongside your team. So then we have to look at measurement. The first thing we needed to do was decide what is a good manager. So we spoke to lots of people, and we ended up with 69 behaviors grouped into 7 competencies. First thing that happened when we took them back round to clients is they said, that's great. Could we have that list? And if you guys are interested, there's a QR code there or a URL at the bottom. You can download our full list that we use to measure against, and that's that 2,100 data point checks. What we get at the end is a measure both across the cohort and also for the individuals of the whole as to where their competency started and where they ended. So the individual can see how they're developing and where they might want to develop further, and an organization can see that as a cohort as well. So that is what we do. Now, the numbers that come out of it. So first of all, we've recently done 53 cohorts that I looked across the data, covering pretty much most of the continents of the world. The data set we're looking at today is 323 learners, 3,661 courses, and they're spread across 33 sectors. So that's the sort of data and where it came from. And I will stop there for now, as that's more than enough listening to me, and I'll pass back to you, Jo, and then you can quiz me on the data.
Do you know, I love this. There's so much synergy here because we talk about data and we talk about the science behind teamwork. And what you're doing there, Pete, is you've got the science and the data behind management improvement, haven't you? Management
Yeah.
competencies. And I think that's something that people are always trying to find, isn't it? Is the data to prove that the intervention, whatever it is, has actually made a difference. So I look forward to seeing more of that later. Um, just out of your experience that you've had, and thank you so much for explaining what it is that you do. I smiled when the people came up because I've been through one of the modules, and I feel that I know them all quite personally. It is a wonderfully immersive experience, and I didn't get all the questions right either. I was quite annoyed with myself. But one question I'd like to ask you, with all of this knowledge that you have, is what is the one skill any manager can improve? And which is the most difficult? What, in your experience, with all these cohorts, with all of this data, what is that one thing that managers can improve?
Well, it's fairly consistent. And as I said, at the start of each cohort, we do a video call with the cohort. Sometimes we're face to face, sometimes they're in lots of different continents. And I always say to them, this isn't you just doing this because it's on your management development program. This is about you getting stuff out you'd like to use. And so we say, what's the things you're looking to get better at? And there'll probably be groans and, oh, he said the obvious, but it always comes down to communication. But it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So probably top of the list is difficult conversations. And actually, in fact, only yesterday, a wonderful woman said to me, she said, Pete, I'm not frightened of difficult conversations, but I don't know how to deal with somebody else as being, shall we say, assertive or aggressive. So it's the nuance of doing that. And if we break that down and we start to talk about other things that they want to achieve, it tends to be that they would like more skills to be less of a people pleaser and be more assertive without being aggressive. They also want to be a better listener. And again, listening is about obviously listening. And we all probably know the phrase that you've got two of these and one of these for a reason. But then it's repeating back, which is clarity. And then it's making sure that the other person feels listened to and is not overspoken. And so then you build up trust, and then you build up empathy, and then you build up understanding. And because that's what you guys do, is all about understanding other people, and what is normal to them is different to others because they certain behaviors. So it always comes back to some form of communication, and particularly the difficult and very nuanced ones. And again, you've done the modules, you know that we don't do the simple stuff. It's the very complicated ones. But yeah, that's the thing I would always say, is that ability to listen, to repeat back, to clearly let people know what you're thinking in a language and in a way they understand. And, it's no good somebody with certain, a certain thing that you've identified using your brilliant Belbin tools, which we've been using, but it's also adapting, and that adaptability, not everybody's the same.
I love that response, because we always say it's just down to communication. Everything seems to, whatever team we work with, it's down to communication. I think this is a common theme. But I think one of the other challenges sometimes is that when you're promoted into management, the blueprint you've got is probably your last manager.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've had a good manager, you're trying to perhaps to be more like them, because you're thinking, well, I'm now into this management role. I need to do it like Jack did it, like somebody else did it. This is how I need to manage. And I think sometimes that's the difficulty, because people are trying to be something that they're not. They're trying to fulfill this perfect manager that they think they should be, which makes it even more difficult when it comes to things like communicating, because are they trying to communicate how they feel they should communicate in that manager's role, or are they understanding themselves well enough to understand, well, we all communicate differently? How can we do this? So I think there's quite a lot in there, isn't there? Rather than just communication, like you said, it's more nuanced than that. Whether or not those who have high shaper resource investigator roles need to be more assertive, maybe they're the ones who need to perhaps listen more. So it really
And
does
indeed, as you
depend.
know, I'm a resource investigator in a plant, so that probably
It's just going to go
explains it.
so all over the shop, isn't it? I'm trying to go back to the list. So that is really interesting. And the other thing I love you've said there is about difficult conversations. Because very often the question we sometimes ask is the conversation difficult for you, or is it difficult for the other person? And is there the same level of difficulty depending on who you're speaking to? Because sometimes it could be that you're the person who's having the problems, everybody else is fine. Or it could be there's one or two within the team that you find it really hard to communicate with. And again, it's understanding more about your style, isn't it? About how you do that. Oh my goodness, I'm just you know, when you start talking, and I'm now thinking of all of those conversations that I've had that I've
Yes,
found
yes, yeah.
difficult. And I'll give you a little snippet. Is somebody in the office I've been working with for many, many years. We have problems communicating, but it's because we're so different. And we've had to just acknowledge that and say, look, you're more detailed process. I'm more all over the shop. How can we find that safe ground between us so that we can communicate with a productive outcome? So, yeah, this is all really interesting stuff.
And
But
on that point, John, I
yeah,
mean, again, another couple of stories. First one has always resonated with me. Same again with a colleague I've worked for a long time. We worked with a psychologist on a project once, and he said, Pete, you've been practicing being you for 45 years. He said, you're going to have to accept that you can't really change something else. But if you understand the other person and they understand you, and you can be a little bit more like them, and you both meet halfway, it's a lot easier than everybody being like you. And picking up on your sort of style and accidental manager as well. One of our first cohorts we did was in Singapore, and a fabulously smart guy called Zishan, who was the CEO. He said to me, one of our issues is we're really good at looking after the people and promoting internally. And their biggest challenge is not so much they're an accidental manager, because they're all naturally quite good people, but it's a real big leap from being one of the team to being the manager. And in particular, when they finished the appraisals module, their feedback was it was almost an overnight change, because they realized it was okay to talk about things in quite an open way and be very specific, because then it was accepted. And the people that had become managers and they were then appraising others, the people being appraised said, oh, it was so much more clear now. We felt like we were dancing around the subject. So it's yes, you should be yourself, but use the right skills and traits and understand the other person. Sounds easy, as you said earlier, but my goodness,
so
it's
easy.
not. And I still cock it up massively. And oh my goodness, I've been a dreadful manager over the years.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Let's all be very honest here. There's some great comments coming up, actually. Claire said that the willingness to come to an agreement is a massive thing. And actually, it's okay not to get along with everybody, as long as you can find a way of working with everybody.
Yeah.
I think,
You
Claire,
don't
that's a
have to
really
go
good
and be
point. You
their
don't
friend. Yeah, you
know.
wouldn't go on holiday with them, but you can respect them and trust them.
Exactly. And it's getting to that, isn't it? And that's very much acknowledging difference and having a language. I mean, that's where Belbin comes in, obviously, which does help with that conversation. Saying that I'm a high RI shaper, somebody else is a high shape specialist completer finisher. Immediately, you know how that could go. So that's where that understanding of self really helps. But I could just talk about Belbin, Pete, and I think I can do that for hours, actually. But we've invited you onto our webinar. You're our guest. So what I would love you to do is to talk you through some of the research. Talk us through some of the results that you had, some of those aha moments, just some things that you came through with all of this data that you have. What would you like to share with us?
Well, if you pop my screen back up again, I'll show you,
There we go.
just going back as a refresh, because I did go through it very quickly. This is across these 53 cohorts last year or so, and we've got a large range of countries and sectors. There was a surprising consistency across pretty much everything. The first thing that really surprised us was we weren't expecting a very big increase in competency from the start point to the end of the program. And remember that sometimes the programs, in fact, more often than not, they're blended in with other interventions or activities. So we're sort of measuring the whole program, not just the online bit. But even just after those that did just the online series, which is an investment of about 12 hours per person, we were measuring competency increases as an average from 54 to 83. And that is mind-blowing. Even if, I mean, our measurements are guide, we only do 2,100 checks and it's not perfect. But to see something that big for a 12-hour investment, you can only begin to imagine the impact that that's going to have on those organizations. And as you said earlier, I guess it's the phrase that many of you may have heard, which is somebody says, well, we really shouldn't train them because they'll probably leave. And then the response is, well, what about if we don't train them and they stay? The reality is that just by doing a very small investment in time and using tools to get to know one another, obviously Belbin, the impact's profound. And that really shocked us. We were angling for between a 3 and 7% improvement. So that was good.
So sorry, can I just clarify that, Pete? Sorry.
Yes.
So this 54% to 83% was the improvement of the competencies from the start
to the end. End.
So wow.
That's the average across all of those cohorts in all of those countries and sectors. Mind blowing. We double checked the figures because even I still don't quite believe that, because it's almost too big, really. But even if you halve it or third it, the impact that's going to have, it's a return on investment in that time. Yeah. So that's what we were. Very little variance by the time you average them out. Which was interesting. There's massive variances between the cohorts, but when we averaged out all of the strongest and weakest competencies, there were some subtle differences. And the strongest competency in the cohorts was team working of the 7, and you guys have got that download if you want to see what the others were. But with team working, it sort of comes back to where we started, which was the organizations that believe in developing people and realize the power of it. They've probably nearly always got an okay culture at the moment and they're building on it. So it makes sense that team working is quite strong. The weakest was actually the ability to analyze. And this is probably linked in with fear of change and innovation and various other things. But that surprised us a little bit. And so, yes, we've mentioned the average competency. Oh, I do apologize. I've got this all wrong. Joe, what a fool. The first one was that the initial competency, wind all this back. The initial competency, read your own slides, Pete. The initial competency ranged from cohorts from 54% to 83%. Do apologize.
With you. Sorry. So yes, that was my mistake.
Yeah, oh no, it's me for being an absolute wally. I'm human. That's what it's all about, isn't it? So on that point of view then, yes, so we saw quite a lot of variance with the skill level that the cohorts were starting from. And that again was very interesting because it shows that down at 50, the ability and the scope for growth is phenomenal. We did see some lovely average competency increases of 13%. Now, again, that was a lot higher than we expected. We were looking for 3 to 7, but that's beyond a sort of a 10% increase in competency. And that's going to have an impact, whatever we do in terms of post-analysis. The other thing that was very interesting, looking across the 7 competencies, and I'm guessing the people that are watching can relate to this, everybody wasn't equally as good at every competency. And what we found by upskilling the people was that at the start of the program, the difference between their strongest and weakest competency was 5%. And by putting them through some training, as well as increasing the competency by 13%, we were reducing the variance between it. So one of the CEOs said, brilliant, my team are now more rounded, but we know where to focus. So that gives you an idea of some of the data that we've got, even if I completely mistook the first one. Apologies for that, everybody.
No, that's absolutely fine. So this is really interesting. So even that there was just a general increase in the see, I can't get my words out now. So just by doing something, increased the competencies in general.
Yes.
Yeah, so that just by doing something had a knock-on effect to all,
yes.
Which was really interesting, isn't it? So you may think, well, I've concentrated here, I just see that increase there, but actually throughout all of those 7 competencies, there was there was an increase.
And everybody knows something to start with. So what was good, we were leveling them up as well as raising them. So that's the data that we got. That's the numbers, if you like, which is all good stuff. And anybody that's going back to the C-suite or the board and looking for return on investment, that's what you get there. The other things that were very interesting is at the end of each program, we asked the cohort, what advice would you give to the next one? And there's three things that generally came out. The first one was, I would allocate enough time so I didn't have to rush it. One guy was generous enough to be honest, and he said, do you know what? He said, most of the stuff we get given, especially the online stuff, we just rush through it. And he said, you guys had said allow an hour and a half per episode, so it's part 1 and part 2 to each. And he said, I left it until the night before we were going to have a call. I only allowed an hour. And he said, I was kicking myself because I thought, I'm only cheating myself here because I'm missing out on learning stuff. And I think we all tend to do this, particularly those of us that, anybody that has to do compliance or dull stuff that isn't really realistic, you fly through it. And it was interesting to see that over all of those cohorts, as time has gone on, the average amount of time in one of the episodes was about an hour and 15. And now we're up to about an hour and a half, an hour and 40. And a lot of the cohorts are young. And what somebody said was, in fact, somebody said to me at once, they said, do you know what, Pete, us youngsters, we aren't all 3-minuters. This was good because we got into it. And it just, there's this paranoia we have in the learning environment where everything has to be shorter and shorter. But actually, if it's good enough, they will watch that. Somebody else said, oh, well, I watch 3 hours of the Diary of a CEO each week. I will watch longer form material if it's good enough. The other thing they said was, and this is a really great tip, and I wish everybody would do this, is they said, when we get together, I share with my colleagues my challenges and what I'm going to do about it. Now, if you've ever tried to, I haven't, if you ever tried to run a marathon or lose a kilo or do whatever you want to achieve, if you share that goal with others, you're much more likely to achieve it because they'll be supportive. And that led into probably the third most important thing that people tell us about making change, because we can give them the skills, the motivation and the confidence. And, with you can give them the knowledge, but to make a change is a bit scary. But we're always after behavior change that sticks. And somebody said to me early on, they said, I'm going to share with my team that I'm going to try a different approach. Because they said the first time I tried it, they all thought I was being weird. And they said, you're not talking over us and you're listening a bit more intently. You're not flicking your eyes around and you're actually repeating. Is something going on that we don't know about? So they were immediately suspicious. And he said, well, when I told them what I was trying to do and why, he said, my goodness, they made it so much easier for me. So that's been some really interesting insights from people that are figuring out that they can learn new stuff and then they can implement it, but it's really good to do it with others around you. And that shared knowledge, again, which is what you guys are all about, has been a very powerful thing that came out the back end of it.
I'm just going to take that because I think just to pick up on a couple of those things that have come there. I mean, the allocate time, don't rush. I think everybody understands that. I mean, when we have people on our Belbin accreditation course, the amount that we have to say, come on, it's tomorrow. You're meant to do some pre-work. Oh, really? Come on, you can get it done. The sharing with colleagues and saying that's what you're going to do. And I think this is where at Belbin we feel quite strongly is that management, you don't manage just yourself. You are managing within the context of the team. And to share with the team what your goals are, what you're planning to do, means that actually it's not just your responsibility. It becomes partly the team's responsibility as well, because they know that the team needs to perform to be able to meet targets, objectives, etc. And it can't just be on the shoulders of one person. A manager's there to delegate the right work to the right people at the right time, to make sure that objectives are hit, and to involve everybody and to say, look, this is where I'm going to go. This is our goal. I'm planning to do this by then. It brings everybody in, which helps make that behavior change. How many times have people been on courses and people come back and they go, oh, you've been on a course, Jo? And I'm like, yes, I have. Look at all my new knowledge that I'm telling you. But I think that's really important that we do that, because it helps us become better managers if we're sharing with the teams what we're learning, and also by using a using a framework that says, I am doing this at the moment, this course, this learning. This is what I've learned. How can we apply that? It makes it less of just a classroom thing, doesn't it? It takes it out so that the team can have that responsibility as well. And I think that's key. It's not just about you, it's about everybody else around you as well. And I think that links with a question I did want to ask you. When you're talking about poor managers that aren't great, they're obviously quite disengaged because they know that. I mean, there's very few people who don't know that they're not doing as good as. Do you think that has a real impact on the team? And do you think the team therefore feels as disengaged as the manager? Do you think they all feel quite helpless together?
It's a fairly easy question to answer that one, Jo. But yes, I mean, to draw on another saying, you don't leave a company, you leave a manager. And it's very true. The flip side is, I'm a bit of a believer in that nobody gets up every day and wants to go to work and be a bad manager. And we might all come home and moan about so-and-so and say, oh, they always do this, they always do that. And as you said, particularly with the accidental managers, our series was designed really for aspiring and new managers, maybe 1 to 3 years. And of late, we've seen so many people that have been in a managerial role for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And as you said, they were a great engineer, they were a great software designer, they were a great salesperson, they were a great finance person. And all of a sudden, they have to manage people. And it's assumed because they were blooming amazing at what they did before, they'll be good at that. And actually, when we get the feedback from those guys, they generally say, if they're in public, the most common thing I'll say is, was it a good refresh for you? And they won't want to lose face, particularly in Asia. So they'll say, yes, it was a very good refresh of stuff I knew. And then you get them on their own and they go, my goodness, particularly I've got lots of young people, the generational variances, but I didn't know half of that. And I've really felt like I've been wading through treacle. I now know ways to understand better, but to be more clear in the way I explain things and to all that other good stuff. And then it's a fairly quick change around because they then realize that the tools and skills mean that they're not able to communicate, motivate, build trust. And that's why the team are disengaged. And then the team are going, if they're never going to change, we might as well move on. And then, of course, you get this horrendous situation that drives the culture down. And, oh, dear, it's horrible. But it's sort of fixable, I think. And that put most people, pretty much everybody I've ever come across, wants to be really good at what they do.
Yeah, we do, don't we? I'm sure there's a few who don't, but I think
maybe there's the odd one or two, but in the minority.
It gives us confidence as well, doesn't it? Like you said, this, I think somebody was asking, are these all first-time managers? You're saying they're more aspiring managers first couple of years, going through the cohort. So you're really giving them skills that they can share with their team and they can all go on that learning journey together in a way.
Yeah, and I had a lovely COO in Sri Lanka, and he said, I've never really understood the difference in generations or people types. He said, I'm now going to be able to get on with my team. And he said, I've been in senior position for 20 years. And actually with him, he was a bit of a command and control type manager, because that's, as you said earlier, is how he learned. And nobody had taught him any different. And he said, oh, I'll give all this a go. And I was really surprised because he was proper arms folded in the, I was lucky enough to be over there. And it was amazing, really. And it's the same with when you're looking at the different Belbin parts. That's that understanding piece. Any tools we can give them, skills or tools for them to understand and adapt a bit better, is great, really.
And it works. As you've shown with your data set there, with the looking at these cohorts, that even a sort of 12-hour initial program is going to make a difference. You can see that it's really making a difference. Are there any behaviors that you think that all managers should have as strengths?
Well, I'd say those 7 competency areas, but I think, as you and I, again, we mentioned with the Institute of Leadership, as you differentiate between leader and manager, they're interchangeable, both have to have some degree of skills. I think for me, it's clarity in direction, communication. There's nothing worse than somebody who's got a great vision. That was lots of things worse, I guess. But if somebody's got a great vision and they aren't able to articulate that all the way down the organization, that as a whole probably has the most profound effect. And again, boring, it comes back to communication, but that ability to engage people in the way they're better being engaged with, get them on board with what the part they play, and then everybody drives forward and feeling they part of something. There's another story. I don't know who it was. It was one of the US presidents, but he went to NASA and he went to the toilet and there was somebody cleaning the toilets. And he said, what do you do? And he said, I help put people in space. And if you can communicate from the very top vision all the way down to every level in the organization, I think that's the one real key skill of a manager. If everybody knows what's expected of them, what they're measured on, and when it's got to be done by, and how they can do it, then all you've got to do is support them and let them fly. That's your job as a manager, really. It's not to do it for them. What do you think? Do you agree with that, Jo?
I do agree with that. And I think it's difficult because I think we always expect managers, leaders, interchangeable, just slightly different things, is to be everything. And I think sometimes we do need to fine tune it. I think sometimes our expectations are too high. We expect the best managers to be great communicators, but also great visionaries, to be great at the organization, to always have attention to detail, to know what they're really talking about, to be able to improve the atmosphere, to know everybody. I've got missing 2 here for those Belbin team roles. But sometimes we are expecting too much. And I think it's important that we really focus on what's going to make the real difference, and remembering that people are going to communicate differently as well. There isn't one way to communicate effectively. So I don't know if there are any behaviors that everybody should have. I would suggest that we need to start with being self-aware.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think there's obviously behaviors we can improve and ones will have greater impact than others, but I think we need to start with self. And with any program that we do, it's not just thinking, well, this is where my strengths are. Again, if we're talking about accidental managers, new managers, they may not know their strengths. They may not, or they're trying to be something that they're not. So I think it is getting that feedback, and that's part of that observer assessment piece with Belbin. It's saying, well, I think this is how I'm coming across, getting feedback from that team, and then understanding, okay, I thought my communication was great, but apparently I'm quite erratic. Or I'm quite impulsive. I thought that my organization was great, but again, this isn't coming through from others. So where do I need to strengthen my strengths? And maybe as a manager, we need to put our hands up and say, and I'm allowed to delegate bits that I'm not so great at, as opposed to being brilliant at everything. Maybe you're just fabulous because you are the expert in that subject area and your communication skills aren't great. Maybe knowing that is really powerful, and thinking, well, actually somebody else who I work with, I'll explain it, so they're going to be far better at communicating it, but I'm still sort of in the role of manager doing the bit that I do best.
Isn't that the secret, though? Surround yourself with people that are far better than you in everything. That's what I would think. I've met some of your team. You're doing it very well so far, Jo.
Try to make myself irrelevant. That's all I need
exactly,
to do.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we know this, and what we've done is worked with you, Pete, and do you want to put your slides up? Because I think
I've got should we do some freebies? I've just noticed what the time is.
That. Yeah, I know.
Pop them up again.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
So, as I know, my audience is a Belbin audience. Jo very nicely said, my goodness me, these look good. Wouldn't it be nice if all those lovely people that are implementing and using Belbin had some way to help them understand it? So what Jo did, she went through the series in detail, Jo, didn't you? And probably twice, I think you went through it. And she mapped all those, indeed, she mapped all those characters and the situations to Belbin. So there's a free download, QR codes there. If anybody needs it, or sorry, I've not put the link on there, but I'm sure Jo will put it in the notes. Yeah. You can head over, download that. That's part of the course pack for our series. And it's some real examples of some people and their characteristics and how they behave in certain situations. So it's a slightly abridged version of the full Belbin report, because that would have been pages and pages. But yeah, if anybody wants it, it's there. And that, we know from feedback, has been really useful, because you've got the little sort of almost like the narrator on the side, as you're going through the episodes, you can see how the Belbin traits, characteristics, behaviors all come into play in each of the episodes. So yeah, as I say, apologies for not putting the link on, but I'm sure we'll get on there. But if you've got a phone, then you can go and get that from there. So that's good. Another one is, as Jo mentioned earlier, we are 30 years in business at the moment, but we're giving away the present. So if anybody is intrigued by this, and we're offering 30 organisations, any 3 of their people, to go on any 3 of the courses, and we'll put the data report together at the end of it. There's the link and the QR code. You can get in touch with me through the website if you want to apply for one of those. And last but not least, in the 5 years it took us to put our Managing People series together, we wrote it all down because, frankly, I'd have forgotten most of it, and we learned a lot of tricks and techniques. I've got a few publisher copies of these. If anybody wants to get in touch through Jo or LinkedIn, first 5, I'll send you a copy over. And of course, in order to do that, you need my LinkedIn. So there's my LinkedIn connection. So I'm conscious we've run out of time. Jo, we could we do often natter all down. We get together. Have I covered all the stuff you wanted to?
I think so. Absolutely. I did. 45 minutes is never long enough to go into any depth. But what you're doing at Upskill People is that you are helping managers become better. You are helping those accidental managers. You're helping those new managers come in, and you're helping them improve their management skills. But you're not just doing that generally, you're measuring it. And I think that's the key bit here, is the measurement before, the measurement after, looking at those 7 different competencies, and then looking. So what we can say is, if we do help managers, which we can help them, there will be an improvement in what they're doing. Also, that we need to share this knowledge and understanding, not just with ourselves, but with everybody else as well. You're able to ascertain things within that data. What's the key thing? It's communication, but nuanced communication. These are the skills that people really, really do need. And there's so much more there as well. There's so much more that you are doing, and we're just really grateful that we found each other across a training room, even though you're in the corner, and we've been able to say, look, this is great. How can we use Belbin team, or the language of Belbin, to help those managers understand themselves, understand the behaviors that they need to improve upon, understand the behaviors that perhaps they need to delegate, and then also understand how to use that within the team. And for anybody who does go through that Belbin module, it's brilliant. And I have to say, that manager, I'm so glad.
We've all worked for a Tony.
We've all worked for a Tony. And it's bringing the language of Belbin to life. And I hope that people who go through that course are finding that another way of improving how they manage, because management is difficult and we need to help people as much as we possibly can. So, Pete, thank you so much. For everybody who's still with us, please do look out for an email from team@belbin.com. I'm going to try and put all of this along with the recording, and I'll send it out either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. But after that, I'm on a jet plane and I'm off to China for 10 days to inspire a nation and tell a nation all about Belbin. So I shall come back with lots and lots of stories, I am sure. So thank you, Pete. It's been an absolute delight, and thank you for your generosity as well.
Wonderful. And I'm just glancing across at the comments. Thank you for all of those. That's very good. And get in touch. Anything I can do to help, I'm here. Thank you very much, Jo. Safe trip.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.